All right, I think we could go ahead and get started. Again, good evening, everyone. My name is Juan Acosta, and on behalf of SACAC, I'd like to welcome you for tonight's college admission workshop on college search and building a college list. We're excited to have Lauren Butler from Breakthrough Atlanta and Heidi Waibel from the Cannon School to share their knowledge and their expertise with us. So with all that being said, I'm gonna let them take it over.
Thank you so much, Juan. We're really excited to be with you guys this evening. Like you said, I'm Lauren Butler. I am the Director of College Prep Programs at an organization in Atlanta called Breakthrough Atlanta. We are based out of the Lovett School, which is an independent school in Atlanta. And we mostly serve students who are from underrepresented groups and helping them with college access programming.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. My name is Heidi Waibel. I'm at Cannon School, which is a K through 12 independent school outside of Charlotte, North Carolina.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Heidi. Well, first, let's kind of get a feel for who we have in the room. So if you can take a second and just put in the chat if you're a student, if you are an educator, and if you are a student, put in your grade. And if you're a parent, you can put parent. We just want to make sure that we can tailor our presentation to our audience today.
If you want to share where you're tuning in from, that would be fun to see just the range of areas as well.
Oh, it says the chat is disabled, I guess.
And I just went ahead and enabled that, so you should be able to.
Perfect.
I see someone's from Miami though in the Q&A.
We have several parents logging in as well.
Some college advisors, ninth grade parents, juniors. Awesome.
Fantastic. North Carolina's representing. I like it.
I wonder if these college advisors are College Advising Corps members. I am a previous Georgia College Advising Corps member, so shout out if you are College Advising Corps. All right, well, we can jump right on in. You guys can continue to kind of shout out where you're from and your population that you identify with. All right, so if you want to go ahead.
We're very excited to kind of have you guys with us. Like we were saying, keep shouting out kind of where you're from. As we go forward, if you do have questions about anything that we are talking about tonight, feel free to put that in the Q&A or in the chat. We can't promise that we will get to it while we're actively presenting. However, at the end, we do hope to have a time to be able to respond to questions then. So if you have any questions during the presentation, you can put them in there, or you can also be able to ask them at the very end. But we're really happy to have you guys here tonight. Our topic is really going to be the college search and building a college list. And that is a very large topic to try and cover in the short time that we have together tonight. So one of the things that we really want to emphasize is that first and foremost, this is a very individualized process. Every single one of our students who are logging in, every single parent, you know this about your students already, and our college counselors who are out there, you all know this too. Every student is going to be different. And so this process is essentially going to be different per student who's joining us and is using some of the tips and tricks that we're going to be providing. Now, we do hope that the tips and tricks that we provide will give you a really good basis to start understanding how to start looking for colleges, what factors maybe should be important to you, and really how to find your fit. And we'll talk a little bit more about fit kind of in the future. We will have some resources at the end as well for you to be able to utilize, but we're going to be talking about a lot. We're trying to be packing it into a short amount of time, but just know that a lot of it is going to be kind of individualized. So our tips and tricks are going to be a little generalized in some places, but we can go ahead and get going.
All right. So like Heidi said, this is such an individualized process, but for the most part, I would say first step, identify who makes up your support system. You're going to need them in this college search. Maybe you have an older sibling, a grandparent, a godparent who makes a significant impact on your life. Open up a discussion, talk to your family about your interests and goals. What was their experience like, if any, and find out what support that they can give you. If there's any money concerns, it's best to know now, right? I spoke to a student this morning and he had his parents on the call. He currently works with his dad doing drywall and helping his construction business. For this 10th grade student, he really didn't know what his options were after high school. So he felt the right thing to do was to kind of help dad and help the family business, but dad made it so clear, like college is number one. So opening up that conversation was so nice this morning to just kind of get the conversation going so that everyone is on the same page. So make sure, ask them what advice that they can offer and what ways that they can support you throughout this process when you identify your support system. So after you discuss your plans with your support system, now it's time to dream. And I mean, dream big. Think about it, like close your eyes, envision yourself on college. What does campus look like? What activities do you want to get involved in? I'm thinking back to my college search way, way, way back then. And I remember one spring break, I was with my family on vacation and we were watching a movie called Stomp the Yard. I'm aging myself. But I loved how everything about that movie depicted college. I was very interested in the Greek life, the sororities and fraternities, and just how active campus was. It all looked just so much fun to the social aspect of things. And when I imagined myself in college, I knew that that's what I wanted. Now, remember, these are your preferences, not your family's, not your friends. When I worked as a high school counselor, I remember students wanting to go where their friends wanted to go because they wanted to room with their besties. And that's so common, but it's okay to forge a different path. It's okay. And I actually encourage you to forge a different path and explore yourself while you're in college. So when you make that wish list, definitely think about you first.
And as you're setting and dreaming big and making that wish list, one of the things I really want students and their support systems to really think about is the difference between preferences and priorities. When you're dreaming big, obviously you can shoot for the stars. Think about anything that you want, anything that's going to make it a successful fit for you. Those are going to be your preferences, the things that you want to have, that you would like to have in that environment. However, the difference is a priority, which is something you have to have. It's not a wish, it's a must-have. And I encourage students and their support system to actually engage in these conversations. One of the things I think would be fantastic starts is as you're thinking about starting that college search, each person, the student and each part of that support system should sit down and write down the different preferences and priorities that everyone is thinking of for that student. It's going to be interesting. There's going to be some overlap between what everyone agrees is going to be a good match for the student, but there's probably going to be some differences as well. And that's okay. That allows for further conversation. It allows for understanding of where each person is coming from, and it opens up the door to more conversation moving forward. For example, a preference might be small class sizes for the student, but maybe the guardian doesn't really have that idea for the student, or they just have a different idea for the type of environment and housing that the student should be in. Those conversations are actually really good to have in the early stage So as you move forward with researching colleges and understanding what's available, you can have a better understanding of where each person is coming from and what truly matters and why. Like I said on here, the preferences are going to be things like smaller classroom sizes, your location, the type of urban or rural setting. If you really like warm weather, like myself, you might want to look in the South, things like that are all preferences. One of the big things, though, I want to stress, especially with preferences, possibly even more than priorities, is have a why behind them. A why is going to tell you a lot. I talk with a lot of students all the time, and one of their preferences is that they want a big football school. Nothing wrong with that. But when I ask, well, why, they don't really have a really solid answer. The idea behind a why of a preference is important because maybe you want football because you are an athlete and you're hoping to get recruited. Makes sense. Then you need to have a school that has that football team. Or if you're hoping to go into athletic coaching or athletic training, sports management, if there's something that automatically ties to it, it makes sense that having a football team would be a really good preference. If it's just for a game day environment, then we're going to have some more conversations, because keep in mind, really, for every school, there's only on average about 7 home games for a football season each year. So thinking and picking a college that you're going to be spending really 4 years of your life at for not too many football games, then that preference becomes a little bit more minute possibility, really. So understanding the why behind it is going to be important. When it comes to football, though, maybe you want that just school spirit. Maybe you just want an energetic campus where students have pride in their school and they want to celebrate and like going to sporting events. That's awesome. There's going to be a lot of schools, though, that meet that criteria, and your preference has actually just shifted from football school to a school with a really strong school spirit. And that's going to be a different search criteria. So your preferences do matter. The priorities, however, have to be your first go-tos, and these are going to be very important. I listed 3 examples on here that you might have. These will also vary from student to student, though, as well. Your major, if you know what you want to study, that's going to be really important. I had a student I have been working with recently. He thought he had found his dream school. It checked every single one of his boxes. And then he got to looking at the actual academic programs that the school offered, and he realized, wait, they don't have my major. And so he's not going to apply there anymore, because that is a priority. That is something that a school must have for you to go there. Affordability, and we'll talk more about kind of the financial picture in the future, should definitely be a conversation that starts earlier on, because ultimately where you enroll might be impacted by financial abilities to enroll there. And then lastly, I put acceptability, because acceptability is the opportunity to actually be accepted and be able to enroll in the school. I always say, shoot for the stars, reach for those schools that might be a little bit more selective. But ultimately, you do have to remember that the school that you enroll in has to first accept you to it. So acceptability should be a priority and something that maybe is a consideration as part of the process as well. So again, have that wish list, dream big, understand what is a preference versus what is a priority, and why each one of those is going to be on your list.
Great point, Heidi. I think sometimes we kind of get those two mixed up. We want to go to that football school, but is it a preference? Is it a priority? So I'm glad that you mentioned that. Okay, so we talked about talking to your support system, creating the wish list, identifying your priorities, discovering your why. And now it's time to explore the fun part. Go to college fairs. Maybe your school is hosting one soon, or maybe there's fairs taking place in your area. I included a link to NACAC's college fair listing in this PowerPoint. I would also encourage you to visit different campuses. So in the second bullet point, we talk about going to different colleges, either virtually or in person. Even if you're planning to go to college out of state or far from home, try to tour a variety of even local schools, just so you can get a feel for the different campus types. Do you want to go to a large school? Is a smaller school you're calling? Do you want to be a big fish in a small pond? Do you prefer suburban versus urban? If your dream school is across the country, there are also some cool virtual resources that you can tap into. So under the participating in-person college tours or virtual, that first link is the College Tour TV series. This is a really cool TV series that you can watch to get an inside look on college campuses around the world. As you're planning your physical trips to campuses, though, utilize some of these resources like Day Tripper University. That's a website for planning visits to college in different areas, and it highlights places to eat, things to do in the area, so that you can get a full understanding of that area just beyond the tour. I also included a link that has itineraries for HBCUs or historically Black colleges and universities. And this one's really cool. So if you wanted to take a tour on the West Coast, it'll kind of compile all the West Coast HBCUs and kind of take you day 1, day 2, so you can do your own tours in various areas across the country. Now you'll want to keep track of all of these colleges. So as you discover different colleges along the way, make sure that you also identify the college search tool that maybe your school uses. Some popular ones that I know of are Naviance or Score, but there's also websites like Niche or Big Future, that's by College Board, that anyone can use. So definitely kind of tap into any resources that you know of where you can save these colleges as you come across them. Now, I'm sure by now, many of you have been flooded with emails, snail mail, brochures laying around from various colleges. And I would recommend maybe creating a separate email that you can use for everything college. So maybe a Gmail account, laurenbutlercollege@gmail.com or something like that, that you can send or have all of your college stuff go to so that nothing gets lost in the shuffle. And then it's okay to unsubscribe from different mailing lists to kind of, if you're not interested in a particular college, just so that you can kind of clear the clutter. Because ideally, you'll want to use that same email address as you're applying for college, as you're applying for scholarships, and making sure that you're checking it often. So on the next slide, the last resource I want to talk about is a screenshot of a campus visit checklist that we found on the College Board website. You're going to want to know specific questions to ask when you're interacting with colleges, or what specific information you hope to gain from researching online. So this way, your exploration to different colleges and while you go on tours, it's active instead of passive. So this is a really pretty good comprehensive list of questions and tips that you can use on any campus visit. Even when you're going to a college fair, you can kind of look at the different sections and say, oh, I can definitely ask these questions. I really liked using this with my students who have never gone to college fairs before, because sometimes it can be a little intimidating. What do I talk to them about? When I go to campus, what do I say? How do I make my mark and like show that I'm interested in the university? These are some really good questions, some really good tips as you go to different campuses.
And part of the reason why we really want to highlight all of those amazing resources that Lauren was talking about, because ultimately all of that is part of the research opportunity to really understand and be able to find your fit. So you've already made your entire list of your wish list. You've already started using some of those different search tools, going to college fairs and trying to ask questions about what really the schools have to offer. And really, this is where finding your fit kind of comes into play. And this is how you're going to shape that probably wide list of colleges that might have all of your preferences down to really the ones that are going to be the best fits for you. And so we wanted to first talk about fit versus match. If a college matches some of what you have, a lot of the times those are looking at numbers. So it might be that your GPA falls within their mid 50% range, or that their test scores are similar to yours. Now, granted, a lot of schools are still test optional. Some states have reverted back to requiring test scores. So that's going to be another part of that search process and conversation. But really a match just means that you kind of fit what they're looking for. You understand that you could be accepted to that university. That's really what match means. However, just being matched with a school because your GPA and maybe your test scores fall in their range isn't a great way to really kind of narrow down your college list and really make sure that it's going to be a place where you're going to thrive as an individual. Instead, that's why we have fit. And fit really kind of goes beyond just that matching level. And it's thinking about how well does this school actually meet those preferences that I've already put on my wish list. And those can be a lot of different ways. We really wanted to focus in on academics, social, and financial fits. But really the bulk of it is understanding and doing the research to figure out how well each school actually matches your preferences. Ultimately, you should be applying and narrowing down your college list to those schools that actually do match your fit and your priorities and preferences that way, first and foremost. So we'll spend a little bit of time talking about each of these three for you.
All right, I'll start off with academic fit. So a college major is the subject area that you'll spend the most time studying. Many students think they have to figure it all out and know exactly what they are going to major in, but actually you really don't. And it's okay to change your major more than once. I'll admit I did that myself. So think about these questions under majors offered that once you start kind of thinking about majors that might interest you. So what are your favorite subjects in school now? How do you like to spend your free time? What do you want to do after college? And as you know, college is about learning, not just the social. So it makes sense to imagine the ideal learning environment. But don't get stuck on things like the college's reputation or what your neighbor is saying at the pool, to compare rank and selectivity. What's more valuable is how well a college's academic style fits you. Because again, like we said, this process is all about you, your priorities and your preferences. So consider the following when you're looking at a different college's learning environment. Ask yourself, do I learn best when I'm being challenged academically? Would I prefer to be in a lecture style classroom or a small setting? And lastly, as you're finding your fit, it's important to consider these different types of colleges because there are all types of colleges and post-secondary ways to receive post-secondary education. So there's a four-year college or university, technical schools, public schools, and private schools.
And when it comes to finding your fit financially, I feel like sometimes this is where conversations can get a little awkward. I don't know about you guys who are tuning in, but I never talked about finances really with my parents. And it was a very kind of awkward conversation when I finally had to go to my parents and say, can we even afford for me to go to college? Or do I have money set aside somewhere? How does this all work? And so starting that conversation earlier on will honestly make the entire process much easier. And it just becomes more comfortable talking about these different topics that really a lot of families don't engage too much in depth with. Now, for me though, cost will oftentimes not limit where you apply. There are different ways of getting financial aid that I'm going to talk through some of the different options about, but it might ultimately limit where you're going to enroll. And that's going to be something that does really play a role. And so having that conversation earlier on can actually help in your college search process to see if you think a school, while the price tag initially might be high, is going to be something that can be brought down to a point that it is affordable for your family. And I encourage that discussion to not just be what I've heard many families say before, oh, don't worry, we'll make it work. That is a little bit of a hesitant answer because it really doesn't give a true answer. The other thing to think about as well is from a family, and I know we have a lot of parents who are joining us tonight, from a parent perspective, keep in mind that this is a 4-year process. Making it work can happen for 1 year, maybe even 2 years, but you really have to plan out that this is going to be a 4-year payment kind of plan to go through to really reach that end goal of a degree for a lot of students. The 2 years, the trade schools, they're going to be a little different. But especially for some of these 4-year colleges that are pretty prominent, you're going to need to be very cognizant of that time frame. Now, there's going to be a lot of terms that are thrown out and things that we wanted to make sure you were aware of as you do your college search and as you're doing your research about especially the financial fit. And so first, I just want to run through some of these different terms for everyone. First and foremost, scholarships are going to be an award granted to a student based on some type of accolade. It could be academic money because you did really well in school. It could be athletic money because you're being recruited by the coach. It could be a special skill, like you play a musical instrument really well. But these are all going to be awards that you've earned through your accomplishments that do not have to be paid back to the school. Now, these could be for 1 year or it could be recurring for all 4 years, so something to keep in mind. Grants, on the other hand, are typically need-based awards, but they also do not have to be paid back. You can get government grants, you can get grants from the school itself. But again, this is another type of way that a school is saying, hey, we see that there's a financial need based on your family income. So we're going to give you a grant of a certain amount to help you be able to pay for college, which is awesome. Loans are something that you do have to pay back, and that's kind of the big difference. It's something that you can get from the government, that you can get from private organizations, but just know that you ultimately are going to have to pay that money back. And so part of the discussion in financial fit should also be, what level are we comfortable taking out in debt? Personally, and this is a personal preference, I cannot speak for Lauren or anyone else on it, I'm okay with students taking out some level of loans and debt to pay for college, if that's what's going to set you up for the future. However, I do not recommend paying for all of your college through loans or taking out a loan higher than what you feel comfortable doing. That level is going to be different per family. So again, something to discuss. Now, especially when people are looking at the cost of tuition, a lot of the times the word that comes to mind is, as that big picture shows, tuition. That's actually only one thing that you end up paying at a lot of universities. If you're going to be living on campus, you'll also have to be paying for the housing. If you have a meal plan, that's another cost. And so the cost of attendance is kind of the full number, everything that you're going to be paying per year at a university. So if you've already started having those discussions as a priority for this is our financial level, you really need to be looking at the full cost of attendance and not just the tuition amount. Now, because I've already talked about those 3 wonderful ways to bring down the cost of college, ultimately what you get to is your net price. So basic math is you start with your cost of attendance, you subtract out all of the scholarships, the grants, the loans that are helping to kind of fill some of that. And then what you're left with is the net price. And that's what you're actually going to be paying to go to that college. Now, that's kind of hard math to do if you haven't done it before, or there's so many different colleges out there that have different processes. The really nice thing is that there are net price calculators on every college website, and I highly encourage families to use them. A net price calculator allows you to put in family financial information. Sometimes they ask for a student's academic information, and it gives you an estimated amount that you would be getting in scholarships, and an estimated amount as to then what would be left to pay out of pocket per family. So it's a really good tool as you're identifying financial fit for students. Now, on the right-hand side, I listed several different opportunities to find aid. The FAFSA, the CSS profile, both of these are forms that might be required. The FAFSA actually is going to be required for every student if you're looking at getting any type of financial aid from the government or need-based awards from any college. So I highly recommend every family fill out the FAFSA. We had a college visiting our school just the other day, and they said not only do they use the FAFSA for consideration for need-based grants, they also use it to identify other students who might qualify for other scholarships that that school has to offer. So it's a really good idea to fill out the FAFSA regardless. The school websites are a really great way. So as you're doing your research, you're looking as to how well a school might fit those different preferences that you have. You can also look at their financial aid page to see if they have scholarships that you might be automatically considered for, scholarships that you can apply for, and just ways to make sure that you're taking advantage of every opportunity a school offers. Outside scholarships are plentiful. If you Google college scholarships, I don't even know how many hits you'll end up getting. It's gonna take a lot of time to weed through and find them, but they are a fantastic way to kind of hold everything, to find some of those outside scholarships and bring some of that cost down. Now, to pull it all together, though, you're gonna have to keep tabs on things. We've given you different worksheets in the past, and this is yet another one. This is a financial aid worksheet that Scholar Match, a wonderful website that does match you with different scholarships based on your major, your location, things like that. They offer this opportunity, this worksheet, to be able to fill out the information and in a kind of clear way to then be able to go back and actually understand the financial fit. So you're able to put in essentially that full cost of attendance, list out any scholarships or grants or loans that you think you're going to be able to qualify for, and ultimately get down to that bottom number to make sure that it does meet your financial needs and is a proper financial fit for you.
Awesome. Thank you for explaining the financial fit. So we talked about academic fit, financial fit. So now let's close out with the social fit. So for my high school students, think about who you are as a student right now. What parts of high school do you enjoy? What would you like to see more of? Each campus is going to be very different. So maybe hang out on campus for an extra half hour after your tour, just to get the real feel of campus and see what it's really like to be a student there. For many of you, this might be the very first time that you'll be living away from home. So consider the following aspects of the campus community that you would prefer. So do you want your campus culture to be a large school or a small school? Urban versus suburban. I remember for grad school, I went to Georgia State, which is smack in the middle of downtown Atlanta. And you can be in your education classroom 1 minute and go across the street and they're filming a movie I think they were filming Fast and Furious. It's just a lot going on. It's not a traditional campus, but that was fine for me. And that's fine for a lot of different students. But for undergrad, I really wanted to be on a traditional campus. I went to the University of Georgia and that gave me that feel that I wanted. It was that big football school. So that was something I wasn't necessarily used to, but it was something I learned to enjoy, that piece of the campus culture, going to a large football school, essentially. And then speaking of football, do you even want sports? Is that something that's a priority or preference to you in your search? Extracurricular activities. Now, this is going to be important because, again, this is going to be your new home away from home. So think about what activities you might be involved in high school now, or maybe some activities you want to be involved in the future. Maybe there's a support group on campus that you feel like is so essential for you to be successful. I know for me, going to a school that was a predominantly white institution, I did want to make sure that they had a Black student union or a group of students that I can kind of identify with and help me kind of not be such a small fish in a big pond. So think about the things that are important to you in your college experience. Some other factors to consider: distance from home. I remember saying to my dad, oh man, I want to go far, far away from home. But then I thought about it. I don't know how to cook. I don't know how to do my own laundry. So being a little bit closer to home had its perks. My parents didn't show up every 5 minutes, but I still had that. So I still had that independence, but I was still able to go home, get a nice home cooked meal, get my laundry done. So think about the distance from home. Do you want to get on a plane ride and have those expenses every time that you want to go home for a break or Thanksgiving or for the summer? Another thing to think about: do they have a first year live on requirement, which means are you required to live in the dorms or residence halls your freshman year? If you have the idea after looking at campus and maybe they had really, really traditional style residence halls, maybe they had community bathrooms and you're just like, there's no way I can share that bathroom with 20 other girls. And you had your heart set on maybe being in an apartment off campus. Maybe that school is not the perfect fit for you because of that factor. And then think about other resources on campus. Of course, the dining halls. If you're really active and you know, really into fitness and you want to know if their gym facilities are top tier, taking that into account. And also, like if you receive mental health support, for instance, and you need to go to the health center and want to make sure that you can connect with some resources and support on campus as you transition to college, that's going to be an important thing to find out on your local or the campus that you're interested in as well. So those are some factors that I thought you want to consider. There are tons more, but I do want to kick it off to our resources page so that you guys can kind of take a screenshot of the different resources that we talked about during the presentation. I think we will be able to share it, but if you wanted to just kind of dive in this evening and look at some of these resources tonight, here they are.
And keep in mind too, we have talked about a lot on kind of this bigger level. And really, if you're taking advantage of these different websites, they are going to be amazing ways to really help you identify the colleges that are going to be the best fit for you. Because remember, as both Lauren and I have said, this is about you. This is not about where your friends are going. This isn't about where maybe your family relatives went, as much as they might want it to be. This is really an opportunity for you to dive into what matters the most to you. So definitely utilize some of these different resources as possible. There's a whole host of them out there. These are just some of the ones that we really wanted to highlight for you.
All right, and I don't know if there are any questions in the chat or if anybody wanted to type something in the Q&A. That concludes our presentation. Our contact information is right here on this slide if you had any further questions after this evening, but we can definitely stick around for a little bit and kind of answer any questions you all have.
The Bulldog Nation is strong tonight, is what I'm seeing in the chat.
Of course. Back-to-back state champions. Not state champions, national champions. Oh my gosh. It's getting late.
Thank you guys for joining us tonight.
And thank you again for joining us. And we will share out the PowerPoint presentation for those of you that attended. So thank you again for this evening, and have a good evening, everyone.